Good afternoon. I am so glad to be back with you, honoring Latino Policy Forum for the third consecutive year at your virtual fundraiser, Latinos on the Move, Purpose, Passion, and Unity. I want to take this opportunity to congratulate you on 10 years of your leadership training program that has cultivated and empowered so many changemakers from our state's Latino and Black and Brown communities. I'm proud to have an alum of this program on my team. Deputy Governor Sol Flores was in that very first cohort 10 years ago. And my senior policy advisor, Martin Torres, was also with the forum for 8 years. So I know firsthand how the Latino Policy Forum's critical work and leadership has built a foundation for equity and justice in our communities, and how you're contributing to the success of our administration. I'd also like to thank each and every one of you for your relentless advocacy for Illinois families, and particularly for our state's undocumented and mixed status families. During this challenging year, you've worked tirelessly to distribute funds and resources to those who've been most impacted by the COVID-19 pandemic. As your governor, I know we'll continue to work together to serve all Illinoisans, especially the communities that need us most. Thank you for all you do.
Good afternoon, everyone. It is indeed my honor and privilege to recognize the Latino Policy Forum on their virtual policy luncheon, Latinos on the Move, Purpose, Passion, and Unity. For over a decade, the forum has been a critical city and statewide leader in public policy advocacy and analysis. I'd like to give a special congratulation to the leadership's training program's 10-year legacy, as well as the past 4 as the Multicultural Leadership Academy. There has never been a more urgent need for unity and collaboration, particularly between our city's Black and Brown communities. And by forging these vital connections with annual cohorts of local leaders, the Multicultural Leadership Academy was ahead of the curve. I'd also like to thank the forum for their persistent advocacy for early childhood education, especially the restoration of funds enabling home visiting services for immigrant and Spanish-speaking families. And lastly, I want to thank the forum for their ongoing work as a key voice in the Illinois Unidos Coalition, which has played an important role in addressing the disproportionate health and economic impact of COVID-19 on Latinos and communities of color in Chicago and across the state. I am deeply grateful for this opportunity to honor the forum today. And as your mayor, I sincerely look forward to our continued collaboration as we reimagine our communities and seize the once-in-a-generation opportunities created even during this very challenging year. So, thank you. Thank you for your partnership. Thank you for your advocacy. And please continue to stay safe.
Welcome, and thank you for joining us for the Latino Policy Forum's annual policy luncheon, Latinos on the Move, Purpose, Passion, Unity. I'm Maria Dowdy, and I'm honored to serve as board chair for the forum for the past 3 years. I've never been prouder of the work that the forum has done than in this pivotal year, which you will all learn about momentarily. I'd like first to thank Mayor Lightfoot and Governor Pritzker for their supportive words, as well as all the members of the forum's leadership training programs, past and present, who you'll be hearing from during our event today. I'd also like to thank you for your support. It's what makes the forum's critical work possible. Let me also be the first to congratulate Sylvia Puente, the forum's president and CEO, on being recognized as this year's Oatly Award, a distinguished honor presented by the Mexican government every year to those most dedicated to assisting Mexican citizens and promoting Mexican culture abroad. Congratulations, Sylvia. Again, we're so happy to host you for our first ever virtual policy luncheon and to share with you all that the forum has done in response to the disproportionate impact of COVID-19 on our communities and to foster Black and Brown unity at this moment in time. Thank you again, and we hope that you will enjoy our event today.
So good afternoon and welcome to the Latino Policy Forum's virtual policy luncheon. Latinos on the Move, Purpose, Passion, Unity. I am Sylvia Puente, President and CEO of the Forum. I apologize for my scratchy voice and a little bit of congestion. I did get COVID tested earlier this week, and thankfully the results did come back negative. Thank you, Maria Dowdy, for your continued leadership as board chair and all the time and energy that you commit. Thank you, Governor Pritzker and Mayor Lightfoot. The Latino Policy Forum appreciates our ongoing collaboration with you to improve the lives of all Illinoisans and being aligned on an agenda of equity and inclusion for the Latino community. Thank you, Scott Swanson, President of PNC Bank, Illinois. This is the 6th straight year that we've been able to count on you for being a game changer supporter. We so appreciate your ongoing support, particularly for our early childhood education efforts. It's been a great partnership. I'd also like to thank my fabulous team of dedicated staff with whom I'm privileged and honored to work, and our board for its consistent commitment, dedication, and service. Gracias. Thank you to our sponsors, including our Game Changer sponsor, PNC, and champion sponsors, Allstate, Bank of America, and ComEd. Thank you to our other sponsors who were scrolling on the screen earlier. And thank you for joining us. Each of you makes a difference. Today, I'd like to share a little bit about what the Latino Policy Forum has accomplished over this past year and spend a little bit of time talking about how we're seeing this COVID crisis unfold. The question that I keep asking myself is, are we addressing what COVID has exposed, exacerbated, and broken? Ever since the COVID-19 pandemic took over our daily lives in March, our team at the Forum has realigned our workload to address COVID. But first, I'd like to run through some of the Forum's biggest accomplishments this year. We published the English Learner Handbook, a groundbreaking comprehensive guide for better academic outcomes and the lifetime success of English learner students, or ELs, and the Forum's most extensive publication to date. Our team developed this book upon realizing that many of our school districts didn't have the tools or best practices necessary to address the needs of EL students. The handbook, which was released in July, and which has now been downloaded over 2,000 times, has already become an important resource for educators around the state. This publication builds on a game-changing, first-of-its-kind study that the Forum collaborated on with the University of Chicago Consortium on Chicago School Research. English Language Learners in Chicago Public Schools, A New Perspective. This study was a longitudinal look at multiple cohorts of Chicago Public School students. It showed that students who began as ELs in kindergarten ultimately performed better academically and had better attendance rates compared to students who had never been classified as ELs. Now, we're thrilled to have shared the findings with several education organizations in Washington, D.C., and we hope that we will be able to influence the accountability measures of how we track EL students across the nation. We also completed the 4th year of the Multicultural Leadership Academy, which brings together Latino and Black leaders together to foster a space where individuals can build trust and deepen their skills as leaders and agents of social, community, and policy change, promoting Black-Brown unity. We commissioned the survey group Latino Decisions to sample Illinois for data on the effects of COVID-19. In that study, we found that 62% of Latinos, 2 out of 3 households, had already lost their jobs, suffered pay cuts, or lost business income. We supported the passage of the State of Illinois COVID-19 Economic Recovery Emergency Renter and Homeowner Protection Act, which awarded nearly $400 million in financial relief. We provided analysis to influence the significant legislation and work with the state to ensure that all Illinoisans were eligible regardless of their immigration status. Both of these efforts were necessary because our initial analysis showed that 200,000 mixed status households in Illinois were not eligible for stimulus relief. This resulted in the loss of nearly $700 million to Illinois economy and was a huge blow to the 50% of Latinos who had less than $500 in savings in the bank to weather job loss. We were proud to work with the governor and the Illinois Department of Human Services for an appropriation of more than $60 million that is targeted for economic relief and critical services for immigrant households across our state. We work with the city and state philanthropic funds on a brand new effort that allowed us to disperse $575,000 in increments of $500 in economic assistance to over 1,150 families throughout the state, families who were struggling financially due to the COVID crisis. We thank the 29 organizations and countless volunteers who aided in this critical effort. And we've served on the newly emerging Illinois Unidos Coalition, which comprises elected officials, health professionals, and community leaders to develop and implement strategies and advocate with local government and philanthropy to address the disproportionate impact of COVID-19 on the Latino community. You can find a more complete list of the forum efforts and accomplishments this year on the side of the screen. Let me pause for a moment to acknowledge that this is our fundraiser. I know that many of you donated as you registered, but let me also make an appeal. Your support of our work is as critical as ever. To make a contribution, please text LOTM 2020 to 243-725. LOTM is Latinos on the Move, so that's LOTM 2020 to 243-725. Now, as I transition to talk a little bit more about the COVID crisis, I would really like to acknowledge and take a breath for those who have lost their lives due to COVID. I take a breath to honor those that are no longer here. And as I reflect how the forum has been thinking about the COVID crisis, I think about what COVID has exposed, exacerbated, and broken. The cumulative impact of COVID on Latinos cannot be overstated, and the cost is much more than health. It is ripping through the Latino community with the deleterious health, social, and economic consequences. The crisis has brought to the forefront the structural inequality that exists in our society and the hardships that so many families face. It's exposed the challenges to surviving economically when 60% of Latino households earn under $15 an hour, less than a living wage, compounded by the widening wealth gap. COVID has exposed disparities in healthcare access and in the precarious economic state that so many Latinos live in. COVID has exposed the digital divide, which refers to Latinos being less likely to have home internet access, on which of us are now very dependent, whether we're working from home or learning. And it's also exposed the challenges to remote learning, of families not having enough devices, of 3 or 4 children trying to attend school on one device, or with low bandwidth, which makes internet access difficult and costly. From a health perspective, COVID has exposed hidden comorbidities among Latinos, which include diabetes and early heart disease, which we are now realizing may not have been previously diagnosed. These structural inequalities have become exacerbated under COVID for both the Latino and Black communities. Latinos are 21% of essential workers, and an even higher portion of essential workers in the services and hospitality industries. They're risking continued exposure to COVID as they fulfill their essential duties and keep our economy running. COVID has exacerbated the economic fragility and day-to-day, week-to-week survival that many in our Latino and African American communities face. Many Latinos are on the brink of not having enough to eat or losing their home because they've never been able to sufficiently save due to their low wages. Additionally, many Latinos live in multi-generational homes, and Latinos are the least health-insured racial ethnic group in Illinois. Regrettably, we're hearing stories of Latino patients showing up to the emergency room much sicker than they would have been had they immediately sought care. Latinos have accounted for 82% of the growth in the US labor market between 2010 and 2017. We have gone from having the highest labor force participation rate to now having very high unemployment. A recent University of Illinois study shows us that up to 500,000 jobs in Illinois may never come back. Many of these jobs are in the hospitality industry, and these jobs are disproportionately held by Latino low-wage workers. COVID has broken the ability of many Latinos to have their first job, much less their second job, which has historically been their safety net. COVID has broken our entrepreneurs' ability to provide for their families and communities. Between 1/3 and up to half of small businesses in our historically vibrant Latino commercial strips may never reopen again. These Latino entrepreneurs hire their neighbors. Their neighbors were loyal customers who spent their money with them. All of this is at risk of unraveling, leading to a potential cycle of disinvestment that can obviously have long-term consequences for our neighborhoods. Will COVID break our neighborhood economic stability? Can 26th Street and Little Village continue to be the second most tax revenue generating commercial strip in the city? COVID has broken many Latino families' ability to accumulate wealth, buy housing, and provide higher education resources for their children. COVID has also broken the ability of many Latina women to provide for their families. Latino women have the largest rates of unemployment among all Latino groups, many being permanently displaced from the labor market. As you can see from the data that's shown here, none of this is projected to go away anytime soon, and the long-term impacts of COVID will be with us for much time to come. This chart shows the rate of COVID for every 100,000 people per racial ethnic group. It shows that the rate is accelerating and that there will continue to be devastation among our city, state, and nation, with regrettably Latinos having the highest rate of COVID among all racial ethnic groups. However, the challenge is not how do we fix everything, but how do we reimagine what COVID has exposed, exacerbated, and broken. We need to build new systems from the ground up that are designed for equity in our neighborhoods, city, state, and nation. Systems that will address not only what COVID broke, but the long-standing inequities that it has exposed and exacerbated. If the Latino community were its own nation, it would have the 8th largest GDP in the world. We must address these issues if we are to maintain this level of economic contribution to our nation. One burning question is, will COVID break the Latino community's growth? As I reflect on these issues, I want to appeal to all sectors of society, philanthropy, government, and the business sector to really determine how we address COVID in the Latino community. How do we address the need for employment and new jobs and economic opportunities? How do we address the long-term health implications for working-age Latinos and the long haulers? How do we address the fact that Latinos under 21 have the highest morbidity rate among people working in that age range? How do we deal with the complications for pregnant women? What will be the long-term mental health cost? And how do we do all of this in a bilingual and bicultural way? How do we find solutions that reimagine? We clearly have a lot of work to do. I've shared the challenges of COVID, but of course, this year has been about another critical conversation as well. The conversation of our racial relations in this divided country. At the forum, we're committed to strengthening relationships and bridge building between our Black and Latino communities. 5 years ago, when I was thinking about transitioning our Leadership Academy to a program focused on bringing together Black and Latino leaders, I could not have guessed where we would be in the nation today. The MLA has never been more necessary than it is at this moment of social unrest and social transformation. Thank you for your attention. Thank you for participating today. We hope you enjoy the panel, and please continue to stay safe and healthy.
Came together what we call affinity groups, and the affinity groups work throughout the entire 9-month period to engage each other, to engage other key stakeholders.
It was a 2-day program where we had Danza Azteca and African folk troops come together in a community where they struggled to connect with each other, so we decided to be at Cornell Square, Barclay Yard.
Your work, your zeal, your very presence gives renewed energy to the heartbeat of this city as your passion empowers, transverse the veins of each community. Even the state of the world couldn't stop us from crossing fronteras, borders, virtually. Not just physical borders, but also the ones that exist in our minds as we cross terrain to transcend to a higher plane while undoing the work of white supremacy. Of a better way to end than as Maya would have said herself, which is, we rise, we rise, we rise.
We're calling it the Multicultural Leadership Academy. We think that at least for the first few years, it has to be about bringing back together Black and brown communities.
The first thing is to know that there are other people who share this passion with wanting to see Black and brown communities not just holding each other in dissonance, but really trying to work together for significant lasting change. That's sort of the first thing.
In many ways, we have been put in boxes and systems that have separated us from really getting to know each other and getting to learn from other cultures. So I think that this is, a good way to be intentional in making that connection and going outside the norm.
We come from somewhere, and we belong to some people. And I think it's important to establish, to bring out that memory and that history, and even the resilience in that.
So I'm always thinking about my father, and I'm thinking about my grandparents and further generations in the past, and to make the decisions that I'm doing and to keep me motivated right now.
We have a set of core design principles. There are 11 design principles that we really consider in everything that we do. The core among them is transformational, which can mean that it's a little bit out of the box. We really focus on how do you build and strengthen trust. and we really focus on integrating arts and culture.
A lot of times, they, with terms of leadership, they want you to be just, very analytical. And this particular program is leaving space for creatives and using being right brain and actually like using the heart. And that's such a gift that's being lost in terms of leadership right now.
I think I've also learned the complexities behind being a person of color that's a leader, right? And working within communities of color. Like people try to frame it as complicated, but it really isn't complicated, it's just complex.
To celebrate oneself is not always an easy thing, right? And so we really work to create a space that affirms our uniqueness and hopefully brings that joy out in the world. And not a joy of folly, right? But a real joy of we're going to celebrate each other no matter what you say or what you do or how you think of us, because we know this is true.
What am I not learning? I think that's the question. As cliche as it may sound, I've learned how to become a better leader and a follower. I've learned how to listen actively, how to be intentional about my actions.
I'm really excited about continuing relationships with people from our cohort into forever, right?
Concretely, there are 5 different affinity groups that are working on a wide variety of short-term issues that will help to improve and bring people together in our city. But long-term, what we're really nurturing, this will be the 2nd cohort, so we'll have nearly 50 committed leaders who are grounded in neighborhoods, who are grounded in process of community change and impact, who are going to be networked to each other. We're catalyzing the process for their trust building, relationship building, and them being able to call on each other the rest of their public life in Chicago. We're catalyzing in 2 years what I didn't have in 30 years of being in this work.
Congratulations to the Latino Policy Forum's 10th year anniversary of the Leadership Academy. I am so honored and proud to have participated in that first year's cohort. That participation allowed me to cement and build foundational skills and create amazing relationships that I have taken throughout my career. And of course, over the last 10 years, I'm incredibly proud of how the Leadership Academy has expanded to be inclusive of the African American community. I think about all of the leaders across the state who are in communities lifting up voices in areas of direct services, public policy, and influencing those things that bring our community together and make us stronger. Again, congratulations.
Congratulations, Latino Policy Forum, on 10 amazing years of the Leadership Academy. I completed the Latino Leadership Academy in 2011 when I was the Executive Director of an Early Childhood Center and trying to turn it around. The Academy helped strengthen my leadership and relationship building skills and helped me better engage and motivate my staff. I learned practical skills around organizational and fiscal management as well as fundraising. Finally, I learned how to lean into my power as a Latina leader and better support the communities in which I worked. The Academy continues to impact me today as a philanthropic leader in the early childhood field as we support nonprofit organizations and elevate racial equity in the spaces in which we work. Thank you, Latino Policy Forum, for an incredible experience, and I look forward to Latinos on the Move 2020.
I would like to send my sincerest congratulations to the Latino Policy Forum for 10 years of successful programming. I am a proud fellow of the Multicultural Leadership Academy of 2017, and I can definitely say as a leader, the things that I've learned, the assessments that I was able to do internally has helped me professionally and personally. I've taken a lot of the things that I've learned through that fellowship with our fellow emerging leaders here in my community in Inglewood. And I just want to thank you all for always embracing me and really helping us to become the best leaders that we can be. Congratulations again on 10 years, and I'm pretty sure I'll be back for your 20th anniversary. Congrats.
Thank you so much for joining our special segment on the Multicultural Leadership Academy as part of the Latino Policy Forum's virtual policy luncheon. Latinos on the Move, Purpose, Passion, Unity. My name is Mark Rivera. I'm an anchor and reporter with ABC 7 Chicago, and I am just so honored to be back with the Latino Policy Forum for their annual Latinos on the Move event. It is so important, and I'm so grateful to share this space with you, with all of you here on this panel, and everyone involved with the luncheon. Different than years past, but still so important, especially now. This year, the forum is celebrating 10 years of its leadership training program. 4 years ago, the program became the Multicultural Leadership Academy with a new goal of bringing together the city and state's Latino and African American leaders to bridge their communities and build intercultural collaborations and social action. Here with me now are 4 of the recent members of the MLA who will be sharing some of the work that they've done and the impact that MLA has had on their communities and on themselves personally. And without further ado, I would like to introduce our guests, greet our panelists today, and we'll start with Henry Cervantes. Henry is manager of the Peace Exchange, which is a program of Holy Family Ministries. His organization engages youth in leadership training and international travel to study global nonviolent movements for peace and justice. Cervantes volunteered at the Cook County Jail in Chicago teaching nonviolent social change, and at Stateville Correctional Center, which is a maximum security prison, teaching conflict resolution. Cervantes is one of 40 human rights defenders featured in the Take a Stand Center at the Illinois Holocaust Museum and Education Center. Janine Miner is Director of Government Relations at Advance Illinois. It's an independent policy and advocacy organization that works toward a healthy public education system, preparing students to achieve success in college, career, and civic life. Raised in Indianapolis, Janine has considerable election and campaign experience, successfully running candidates for both statewide and local elected positions. She's also been an advocate for education in several capacities throughout her career prior to joining Advance Illinois. Janine serves as a senior project manager for a management consulting firm, and she's a proud alumna of Indiana University, where she obtained both her undergrad and graduate degrees in political science. Sonica Ruiz has served as program specialist for the Chicago Park District for the past 24 years. She's managed programs including concerts in the park, movies in the parks, Jazz City, urban campers, teen opportunity fairs. Have you guys heard of it? So Ruiz also works with the HAY group, which HAY stands for Healing Every Youth, which is an MLA affinity group that promotes peace, healing, and unity in the community through free art and music events, while also destigmatizing and connecting mental health services to Black and Brown youth. And Matt Woods is the Urban Gateway's program manager of Street Level. He directs the Media Center's programming and engagement for Chicago's opportunity youth throughout the city. Located in Westtown, Street Level has a 25-year history of being a leader in media education, in digital media production as well. At Street Level, Matt brings his experience with both grassroots organizations and public institutions to cultivate an ecosystem that synthesizes technology, popular education, and community partnership. So thank you all for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
The first thing I want to ask each of you is, how has this program, how has MLA changed you? How has it sculpted your view on Black-Brown relationships and relations in the city and beyond, and your role as a community leader? So let me ask Matt to start us off here.
A great question, but it's a big question. I was thinking I have to start like personally. I have a base of peers, of friends that were developed. I developed a relationship through the MLA that I can call on. That we group me like every other day, and I can bounce ideas off of. But also, talk about everything from self-care to the State of the Union. So that is incredibly valuable. And in addition to that, we can kind of compare notes. The work that I do with young people, we're always like thinking about programming. And so there's networking that's done, but it's also we vet our ideas. And so it's just, it's like a warm, comfortable chair that I can go back to over and over again.
I love that. Sonika, how about you?
Oh, well, I would have to say that MLA has impacted me as a leader by breaking down some of the barriers that I may have had, I brought in with me, and working together as a team to assess what it is that we value and how we can impact our communities. We have this network of people, like Matt said, amazing, talented Black and Brown leaders who come together and are just dynamic. And we have been able to do some exciting and phenomenal things within our communities. And I think I've had aha moments when I realized how our stories get lost. And we've had the ability to tell our stories and capture our stories through this process.
So Janine, tell me, what about you?
I would like to echo what Matt said. You know, being from Indianapolis and moving here about 2.5 years ago, it has really created and fostered friendships that are also potential coalition partners for various advocacy initiatives that we do as a group, as well as things that we back each other up in our own work as well. So we've had cohort members that say, I'm doing this at my particular place of employment and I need, you know, some people to come out and support me, and we have done that. So, you know, that coalition, that friendship that's there. I would say also the tools to create equity of opportunity in our communities. And then it also has given me like additional leadership skills to just be able to work within my place of employment and be able to shine and come through as a leader in my place of employment as well.
That's awesome. How about you, Henry?
The Multicultural Leadership Academy has definitely made an impact on my view in terms of Black and Brown relations. I've always been fascinated by the history of our people and the history of the African American community. And what the Policy Forum has done with the MLA program has made that history real. You know, from the retreats to the affinity groups to the guest speakers that came to train us, talking about the social and political history, that it is a hidden heritage that we have amongst both communities. So, you know, everything that I do now in terms of Black and Brown unity has a direct connection to the MLA program. So, you know, I guess I'm just grateful because, you know, the question for me always becomes when I'm doing work in the community, how can I make all this knowledge and history real for people? And it's something that has been taught to me through MLA.
A lot of what you guys have been discussing this year is this idea of anti-Blackness in the Latino community. What is MLA thinking of that? And Henry, you mentioned our shared history. Tell us a little bit about what you guys have been talking about as a group.
I remember during our retreats and our training sessions, when we would meet, and they would make these timelines and looking at the history of African-American people in the United States, and particularly in Chicago. And they do the same thing to the Latino community, Latinx community, and really look at both timelines. And there's a lot of crossover. From political to cultural to community. It really, you know, for me, to borrow Sonika's word, the aha moment was like, we have all this shared past that we don't even know about. And imagine if the community knew about this. We wouldn't have as much anti-Blackness in the Latino community as we do. You know, and that's something I think for us, you know, I'm in Little Village, I'm in the Mexican community. Right now during, you know, this pandemic and the social movements for change and racial justice, a lot of that anti-Blackness came up, you know? And so I think what we need to do and what the discussions that we've been having as past cohorts is how do we continue to address that, to bring that to the forefront? Because if we don't acknowledge anti-Blackness in our own communities, how can we expect that out into the wider society? So it's something that I think about often. And, you know, if it wasn't for our work in MLA and understanding the common history that we have, you know, I wouldn't be doing this work.
When you think about what we share as between our cultures interculturally, how have you guys been working to try and articulate what's going on right now and how we can move forward together instead of on separate paths? Matt, why don't you take that?
I mean, some of these questions are like, even like the question is the answer. I think having a group of people around you, a community around you, willing to work towards those things, willing to ask those questions, willing to process through these things within conversation and also in action is major. We think about the Pan-Latin and Pan-African experiences, this definition of even how we see ourselves. For me, just talking about that experience, our shared experiences of being colonized, of being maneuvered, of being ignored, we have these conversations, but also develop a relationship across these cultural lines. And we realize too is that it's across cultural lines, but it's also it's connected, because in the Pan-Latin experience, there is Blackness. There are a multitude of ethnicities within the Latin experience, within Latino, Latinx experience, and then a multitude of ethnicities within Blackness. And so I think that oftentimes what's happened in the mainstream kind of lens is these get sectioned off as if they're different, but in fact, there's more connection than there are differences.
Janine, just what are your thoughts?
No, I agree with both Henry and Matt, and we've had wonderful conversations like the MLA, when we were talking about anti-Blackness, brought us together, not just the cohort that I belong to, but all the cohorts together. So we had the opportunity to meet other cohort members and be able to just talk about things that were affecting us in a safe space, in a healing circle. And, just being able to relax and to have those conversations with each other, to talk about, to hear that your cohort members are saying, admitting to the fact that, there are some anti-Black sentiments within my own family. And I need to call my family out, lovingly, not in a malicious way, but lovingly, and say, hey, family, that's not how, it works. And we actually do have more similarities than differences. So just to hear that was, it was helpful.
Sonika, what are your thoughts when you think about this issue at hand?
We have really come together, I think, as MLA on these topics of anti-Blackness and really hit the ground running from right away. I feel like everyone was very proactive, and we started to creatively think and engage and have the conversations thoughtfully to come up with ideas of how we could hit the ground running and use, we've come into the parks, we've gone into public spaces, we've used artists, Black and Brown youth, Black and Brown artists to come together, alumni leading conversations and talking about this with community within Latino and African American communities.
On behalf of everyone at PNC, thank you to the Latino Policy Forum for your unwavering commitment to equity, justice, and economic prosperity for the Latino community. We're particularly proud to stand by you and support you in your efforts to improve educational outcomes for children. Your parent engagement programming provides immigrant parents with the tools they need to support their child's early development and help them reach key milestones. And of course, these resources now play an even bigger role as parents navigate a remote learning environment with their children. So again, thank you for your continued leadership and commitment to bringing purpose, passion, and unity for all of us.
MLA has afforded me the opportunity to expand my professional network and to embark on a transformative and challenging leadership experience. Because of MLA, I have formed lifelong bonds that I continue to foster and depend on today.
Good afternoon, I am Alicia Gonzalez. I'm the Executive Director of CUPS Charities.
And in 2012, I had the honor of being a part of the Multicultural Leadership Academy. It was not only an opportunity for me to network with other nonprofit leaders across the city and state, but it was an incredible opportunity to look at my own leadership style critically and build a more collaborative and inclusive work environment, which was absolutely needed at the nonprofit that I had just recently started at the time.
For me, the really major takeaway was the sense of community that is fostered through the cohort model, not only in your cohort, but beyond, because we have had a shared experience together, learning, growing, developing, revealing, making ourselves vulnerable, but also cheering each other on. That is such a major opportunity for the professional and personal growth that we each take on for the collective gain of our community. And for that, I am truly grateful. Felicidades, Sylvia, the amazing team that you have, and all the contributions that the Latino Policy Forum makes for our state. Thank you so much.
Let me ask you guys this. So MLA is bringing all of its cohorts together to engage in projects for civic and community change next year. This is happening next year. What do you think can be accomplished when you bring all of the cohorts that you guys have been a part of the cohort? What are the other cohorts when you bring them all together? What do you think can happen?
I am excited for it, right? So when this idea came up and they brought us all together and they said, hey, instead of taking on a new cohort next year, we're thinking about bringing everybody together, and we're all working together to go out into the community to accomplish, bringing everyone together. Some policy issues, of course, we want to work on some policy issues to uplift both of our communities. And I just thought that was so refreshing. You see a lot of times that organizations will say, okay, well, this is our platform and we're just going to move, forward. And they really took the time to sit back and say, wait a minute, this is a big moment that's happening right now. And we can really do something good with our cohorts and our affinity teams. Let's take a step back and see what that is. So I'm expecting to, once we all come together, be able to share even, bigger ideas. I can't wait. I'm excited. I want to go to the next step in action. So I think that right now we're doing a lot of sharing of information and cultures. So we can, connect and have that unifying, that uniting that comes together. What I would like to see when we come together are like these next steps, these action steps.
Henry, tell me, what are your thoughts on that, bringing those cohorts together?
One of the things that comes to mind for me is, holding sacred space in both communities. There's a lot of work that needs to be done for racial justice, social equity, and economic justice, and political work that needs to be done for social change. The thing that sticks out to me is also how are we holding sacred space for healing? We have undergone, a double pandemic. We have the coronavirus that's disproportionately affected Black and Brown communities disproportionately to the rest of the population. This has been a traumatic experience, both like in our history, with what happened with education and labor and politics. I would love to see the cohorts come together and also hold space for healing. Because, part of social movements for change need that, because we need to heal trauma. We need to heal wounds. What's happening to the Black community and the Brown community, that doesn't go away. And so we need to provide space for healing. And on the cultural front, it's something that I'm very excited about, because one of the things that we've been doing is working with traditional, Black cultural workers and healers, and the same thing in the Brown community. And give that space to bring it back to our communities, you know?
And Matt, I want to touch on this with you because you were nominated as the speaker for your cohort, and you quoted Muhammad Ali, and you spoke about this concept of me and we.
Muhammad Ali, the story goes that, his belt had been taken away, his title, out of protest to the Vietnam War. Because he did that, they took his belt away. And so he went around the country to speak in speaking engagements as a way of raising awareness and also, honestly, raising funds. And he was, I think it was at Harvard. They asked him for a poem, like, hey, Muhammad, give us a poem. And he thought for a while and then said, me, we. And I think what's so great about that poem is, it's such a minimal, it's just one, 2 words, but really it's just one word. It's just one word that gets turned upside down. It's the same word. Me turns into we. The thing that affects the individual affects the group. And what affects the group is what affects the individual. And one of the things we talked about at the MLA is this idea, kind of a tribal wisdom, this wisdom that we have within our cultures and this way of approaching things from the idea of a village. It takes a village to raise a child. It takes us as a community to create opportunity and difference for us as individuals. And we have to think about our heritage, our heritages. So to me, that when that came up in our conversation, it just it all kind of just tied in. It's just a simple thing, but it's something that I still think about. I still think about to this day.
Sonika, tell me a little bit about what you have been doing, because you've been bringing together youth groups from across the city, like HEY, which is Healing Every Youth group. So tell us a little bit about that group and what you've been doing with them and the annual summit.
Sure. So we are affinity group HEY is Healing Every Youth. And there are other cohorts that I had in 2018. There's about 6 of us that have come together to present about 10 events so far. We've done throughout the city. For the last 3 years, we've been working on collaborative arts healing events that destigmatize mental health and wellness through the arts. And so we've had about 10 events in parks and public spaces, all free events. And there have been youth artists, Black and brown artists. There have been clinicians involved, lots of conversations and creating. And it's brought together communities in both African American and Latino communities. And everyone is welcome. It's all ages. We don't just focus on youth. It has evolved to everyone. And that we started it off as Healing Every Youth. That was our mission, but it turns out we're healing everybody.
So Sonika, what have you seen with the I know it's broader than youth now, but what have you seen with the Black and brown youth that you have served and that you've worked with?
What I've seen is that the youth are so engaged about this topic, and they are so knowledgeable about how to express anti-Blackness within communities. I see Latinos and African American youth acting as brothers and sisters in ways that I never saw when I was a youth. Just seeing this unfold is just phenomenal. Mm-hmm. To see young people step up when adults and the activists that can't be in the street due to age possibly or other reasons have stepped up and done this work and making such an impact in our communities. It's so important.
So Henry, let me ask you this, because you have been working. You worked on a Labor Day event that you organized, and you brought together indigenous Aztec and African dance groups.
So over Labor Day, we stood on the corner of Ogden and Lawndale, which is the dividing line between North and South Lawndale. Mm-hmm. North Lawndale, historically Black community. South Lawndale, historically Mexican community. And because of the tensions that have come up after the George Floyd protest and the Black Lives Matter protest, and a lot of the implosion that took place with the racial tension between Black and brown, we decided to hold this healing ceremony. And so to me, what amazes me the most is that, like Matt said, we have a shared history of being colonized. We have a shared history of having almost our history taken away. Both of our communities have faced discrimination in this society. And it is no secret that we live side by side, but we're still segregated. And so we held those ceremonies to bring the cultural workers together, to heal each other, and to honor our shared history and culture. Because, you know, when you provide that space for culture, then the work is done itself. So that is part of what we're continuing to do. We've been doing this for years, but over this Labor Day weekend, we decided, you know what, we need to do this right here, right in the heart of the community. And after it, we had a talking circle, which is an indigenous practice to come together and talk through issues and find solutions through conversation. And so alumni came out, the community members from the block came out, and it was powerful. We were social distance, we were, you know, safe about it. And, you know, I just think we need to do more of that work because, you know, we have a common history, and even if you look at Black traditional dance and Black traditional song and some of the songs and the dances in the Brown community, there's more in common than we have apart. And, you know, in the dance and in the song lives the history of our people.
So Janine, let me ask you, because tell us just a little bit about your work and the importance that you feel about fostering Black and Brown unity in the city.
When we're looking at different policies and we're looking at research data to guide us to, you know, where are the challenges and what needs to be done, we see so many similarities between Black and Brown, and I'm speaking specifically of education because that's what I work on, but within education, we see so many of the same challenges with Black and Brown students. And so I think that us doing this work, coming together, we're definitely going to get together on some policy work and work together for bringing about different policy changes. One example that I could think of is we are needing teachers in our classroom in the state of Illinois, and we are really needing Black and Brown teachers in our classroom. Our students need to have teachers that look like them in front of them. Additionally, it also helps students of color when they have teachers of color as well. Mm-hmm. And so, you know, I'm looking forward to what's coming next year. What are some of the policy issues that we can address, like teacher diversity?
It's not often, I feel like it's not often we all get an opportunity to sit down and come together and actually talk about these issues and talk about what we've learned, because that's what you guys have done today, right? You guys have talked about what you have done together as a group and to bridge divides. And that is truly, truly a really beautiful thing. And I wish we had more of it. I want more of it every day. I want more of it. So.
Felicidades and congratulations to the Leadership Academy. 10 years is a long time, but we're barely getting started in addressing the issues in our neighborhoods. I owe the Leadership Academy so much. I feel like it came to me in a time where I needed it the most. I was losing interest, I was losing passion, but because of the people that I was with, the cohort, the instructors, I felt I got re-enlightened, and my passion, my interests were reborn. Now, 6 years later, I feel like I am a whole different person, and I owe a lot again to the Leadership Academy. Cohort 6, perhaps the best cohort there is. Latino Policy Forum and all the staff, congratulations on 10 years of the Academy and for 10 more in the future.
The Leadership Academy for me was an amazing experience. I was a founding executive director, brand new to the work, brand new to the field, and brand new to creation. And the Leadership Academy not only gave me the tools I needed, but put me in contact with amazing mentors. There were so many sort of twists and turns in my journey in getting Corazon Community Services off the ground. and the Academy came in at the right place in my professional career. I met great colleagues across the field who I learned were doing amazing work, and I could pick up the phone and call them and just ask some basic questions. I didn't feel afraid to be kind of open and honest about the challenges I was feeling. And the Academy brought together this group of leaders from across the city and suburbs to really be as one. And this is what the challenge was. How do you bring a diverse group of people together to really be there to support each other and to support the field? And how do you get people of color to feel supported? And so congratulations to 10 years of bringing together amazing people from across the city. And Sylvia, as you know, you've been my mentor from the beginning of Corazon Community Service. So thank you for all of your hard work at the Latino Policy Forum.
Thank you all so much for joining us today. For more information on the forum and the MLA, you can visit our website, www.latinopolicyforum.org, or follow the forum on social media. Please take care and stay safe. Thank you all so much for being here.